Okay, hey, what's up, everybody? So, a little bit earlier today, I ended up doing a little community session on the stream live while the servers were down for the patch note changes. Since then, we've had a number of hours to be able to actually go in and test some things. Just wanted to give you a quick recap of the impressions of that and what seems to really be sticking out. Now, obviously, this stands to have some more testing, and there were some impressions from the community that I think deserve to be shared. People are wondering as to why the game would wipe on Monday when the first season has yet to begin. I believe simply because there was an awful lot of money being exploited at the very start of the game when it launched in the earliest days. There was an awful lot of cheating, an awful lot of RMT going on. And quite frankly, I think that they're just trying to repeatedly start things off fresh on a clean slate as if we were doing multiple rounds of play testing. My assumption is, and this is something that I would like to get a dev answer on, and I'm trying to but haven't yet, is that they're going to keep elongating the duration of time in between when they end up doing these resets. When they make large swathing balance changes and whatnot like this, especially with the game cycle at the moment being as fast as it is, I think it makes sense for them, or at least to them, it makes sense to them to wipe the game and have everybody kind of start back over and get a fresh perspective on what the game looks like from a scaling point of view. Now, again, they're wiping the game on Monday, and they patched it today. And I believe the reason for that is because there's an awful lot of people with an awful lot of gear, so they can check what the damage scaling looks like for a number of classes versus starting out fresh, new, whatever, with brand new characters like new wizards right now with staves and whatnot, and see what that damage scaling ends up looking like, what the damage mitigation looks like. How do rangers feel when they actually have stuff? And the list obviously goes on and on. This as opposed to having to wipe the game and then see what it looks like in 2, 3, 4, 5 days out when the leaderboards have been reset and everybody's able to be competitive again. So rather than that, they can look at this now and then possibly make some iterative adjustments on stat values and whatnot between today and when the game wipes in about a week. Now, from here, there were some changes that were made, and I want to talk about those very quickly. The first is the staff change. Now, there's two sets of verbiage, and this is a question that my chat had, and obviously a lot of people in the Discord had. Would the staff end up being additional damage for the weapon when you hit someone, a la like what the Crystal Sword does, or is it additional magical damage for like casted spells? And the answer is it's for casted spells. There is magical weapon damage, which is applied like that on the Crystal Sword, and then there is magical damage. So magical damage is for casting. On the staves, the magical damage is applied for casting of spells. That's what the affix is. That starts the dark gray, like worst quality item that you would start off on, like say a level 1 or a no gear rolling of your character, wizard, cleric, warlock, is going to be 5 points of damage. That is better than a green spellbook. That is a blue quality spellbook or a blue quality crystal orb in equivalence. Now, the difference here is that there's no other secondary stats. Obviously, like if you have a green quality spellbook or a blue quality spellbook, etc., they have 1, 2, 3 lines, etc., of additional stat points, which make those more attractive items if you get good stat rolls. However, the animations for stuff like a spellbook are significantly more beneficial than that of a wizard staff. So yes, there is additional damage on the wizard staff, but the animation is clunky and it hits stuff all the time. And the question is whether or not that's going to be viable late game. I think you're going to find the community kind of split on this, where wizards will look at this, clerics, whatever, will look at this as something that is potentially viable from a damage dealing perspective, but there's going to be a lot of other people that say that the cast animation isn't worth it, and they're willing to sacrifice a few points of damage to get a more beneficial cast animation if they start getting a lot of gear. I have a tendency to agree. Late game, I don't think that you're going to see a whole lot of staves unless there's some just like absurd rolls for stats. Now, that being said, all of these new secondary stats, the spell damage, the armor penetration, all of these new additions statistically that they've now added to the game are only working, they're only being applied to items that dropped from the game after the patch took place. So you have a lot of items that are in circulation right now that have stat rolls that are of the old variety. So there are old wizard staves and old mauls, for instance, that don't have spell damage or don't have armor penetration on them, still in circulation in the game. And then there are the newly rolled items that do. So for those of you out there looking at and trying to compare these items, make sure that you look for that line item in the tooltip. Otherwise, you could end up buying something that doesn't actually have what you think you're buying. We ran into that today with somebody that had an epic quality, an orange quality staff that did not have any spell damage roll on it. It was just stats. It makes it significantly worth less than, obviously, something that has the magic damage stat on it. That being said, Shadow Wizard Money Gang. Honestly, this patch looks like it did a lot for Rangers. It nerfed fighters into a realm that seems more realistic, although they still have a lot of damage mitigation. Clerics were made somewhat stronger as a result of the armor penetration mechanics and whatnot. Again, likely to combat higher armored fighters. Clerics, I think, are probably in the strongest position they've been in a very long time, but not in the sense that I think that they're overpowered. I think that really what we're looking at is that clerics are more or less a staple in the meta right now because there really aren't that many or really any other support alternatives, save for like a bard or a wizard that decided that they really wanted to backline and do a whole lot of buffing. That's really the only other thing that I could see. My hope is that once they start implementing things with the druid, that we'll see a lot more support options from the druid in order to be able to provide things like healing or healing over time or some other nature style of magic that would be beneficial to a team-based setting where the cleric wouldn't necessarily be as relied upon as it currently is. And then lastly, the lanterns and explosive bottles that are thrown are being augmented by spell damage now. So they become useful in fights even more so now than they used to be because things like will and plus spell damage are now affecting the damage ticks that go along with them. Also, there were no changes to warlocks. They still hit crazy hard. In fact, now they hit even harder because the wizard staff that a noob warlock starts off with is now being augmented even more. Their Q ability, that Blow of Corruption, is even more augmented than it was beforehand. So even a warlock in complete grays is an absolute threat. So I would assume that those changes will be roped in as time goes on. Anyway, guys, that's it. The short and sweet of it all. That's my basic impression. I'll definitely keep my ear to the ground. I have another video coming out very soon that I'm going to go into that goes into my nuke paladin or nuking cleric build, much more paladin-esque and on all plate and whatnot. But it's a nuking cleric build that I think you guys will really enjoy. Has a lot of really cool gameplay features, and it's a walking highlight reel, and I think you guys really like it. Anyway, thanks so much. We'll see you in the next one. Love you guys. Thank you for showing up in the streams for all the Dark and Darker content. You guys are the best. We'll see you soon, okay? See you tomorrow morning. Peace.